we went to take photographs at a river in Battle Creek at a park called River Park, Bridge Park. On the way back, my husband said to me, "Oh, they're going to evacuate us." So I went home and I packed backpacks. I got my dog food for my dogs, and I packed, thinking they're going to come knock at the door and say, "Get out." It didn't happen. I started making phone calls. I called my mayor. I called my health department. I called the city manager. Then I started going up the line, and no one returned a call. No one. And so we were sitting there breathing this stuff, and when you see a little child who at the time was 9, in the middle of the street, projectile vomiting, and I'm sorry, I know we just ate dinner, you know something's wrong. So I had taken these photos, so I uploaded them to CNN's iReports, which if you're ever in a disaster, do it, because if it hasn't hit the media, they tend to pick up on it rather quickly. Sometimes. Sometimes. I went in after I uploaded it, and because he told me to take a shower, and they called and they said, "What do you need?" "There's an oil spill." And I said, "Yeah, there's an oil spill going down the Kalamazoo River, like 1 million gallons." "Well, why haven't we heard of this?" And I very flippantly, because I have a weird sense of humor, said, "Maybe they don't want you to know about it." Lesson 1 learned. They don't want you to know about it. Whether it's a refinery, whether it's a pipeline, whether it's it doesn't matter. They don't want you to know about it. So they said, "Please keep uploading." So I did. And somehow that got caught up, and eventually I ended up going to Congress. I went before my congressman and spoke to these people, and the guy looked me in the face and said, "You will be made whole." Well, here I am 3 years later. Trust me, I'm not whole. My community's not whole. My county's not whole. My state's not whole. And it's probably not going to be for a very, very long time. I've gone to other states. I went to Texas, begged them, because they have a little pipeline down there called the Seaway, which goes under the drinking water of 11 million of Dallas. I went up to Vancouver to stop a very nasty pipeline they want to run through some of my friends' backyards called the Gateway. I've had to deal with people from the Mayflower because they know when something like this happens, it's going to change their lives forever. And then I got to meet people like this. I got a call one day, and someone said, "Are you the oil lady from Battle Creek?" And I said yes, because that's how these calls go. And it was a commissioner of an area around here, and he said, "Would you come talk to us?" And I said yes. "Why? Have you had an oil spill?" And he said, "No, line's 6 feet." And I went, "Oh, okay." So I met with him. I went to a couple of the local meetings. I think here's the second one I went to, which was that. And this lady walks in and she goes, "I just want my," and all the neighbors were there, and they're going, "I want you to tell your stories." And they started looking at him, and I'm in the front of the room, my husband's in the back, because we were going to take photos and videotape. And I kept turning around because my mouth kept dropping open, because they were treating these guys as badly as they had the oil spill victims, if not worse. Now, I come from a corporate background, so if I wanted to build a landing strip on your farm, I think I'd be a little nice to you. But no, they treat them the exact same way. And so now you got the ranchers and the farmers being impacted the same way. And I remember I kept turning around looking at my husband going, "I can't believe this," And I think, but I had talked to other ranchers in other areas like Nebraska and Kansas and Oklahoma and Texas, and this happens all around the world. And you think it'll never happen to you, but it doesn't matter whether it's fracking, which It's coming here, and you guys know it. And it's going to come up. Whether it's drilling, and they do want to drill offshore, and I'm talking big holes. Whether it is coal being mined and the ash being dumped in the Great Lakes, it's going to come here. And if we do not stand up and start saying things, this state is doomed, because they are going to destroy it. They don't care. It's always about the bottom line. It's about the money. And to them, anything that gets in the way, they're going to come up and fight against. So you have a very big struggle. And I think most of you know that. But I would like Beth to talk.
After you said all those exciting things. I'm Beth Human. I live about 15 miles that way along the pipeline. Got to know people because of the pipeline. I've been an environmental educator for 42 years. And you know how you say NIMBY? Not in my backyard?
In my backyard.
It's in our backyard. The pipeline is that far from our back door. And you know, the deal is we bought this cute little passive solar house on the end of a private road, and 27 years ago we were closing, and somebody in the room said something, you know, there's a little easement through the backyard, and we said, oh, whatever. And then about 14 years ago, a gas company, a Vector, showed up and turned our lives upside down, and we thought, oh my gosh, there can't be any hell worse than this, and they put a gas pipeline through our backyard. And so a few years ago, our first contact with Enbridge was a guy standing at our gate, and we have dogs, and we have 2 or 3 acres fenced in the front part of our 10-acre property, and there's a guy standing outside of our gate, and said hi, and I kept on talking to him, and within 5 minutes he said, and if you don't cooperate, we'll condemn you. That was our meeting with Enbridge. And coming from the background of knowing about environmental stuff, it didn't even strike me until I started meeting these people. Holy crap. I mean, not only are we dealing with the not in my backyard, but we're dealing with what could doom life on our planet as we used to know it. And I remember 35 years ago I was working on Environmental Justice Commission that was church involved, and we were passing out global warming stuff. And it hadn't happened yet then, you know, and people were saying, oh, projecting, and of course we now know the projection's way off the scale from what they even said back then. And so I guess our personal experience is mostly summed up with 2 words, and it is, they lie. They lie. And you know they lie. But Bob and I and Tom and Carol, Michelle, we really know how much they lie. Because every step along the way they've lied. And when they were supposed to hold a public hearing so people could speak their truth to the Michigan Public Service Commission, the information went in the paper 4 days before the hearing. When we called the Michigan Public Service Commission to find out about the hearing, they said, oh, you don't need to come, it's just a formality. And that was just the beginning. And on a day-to-day basis, all we've learned is they lie. And of course, you know, the big lie is the tar sands oil, and the other big lie is that we're going to never run out of resources, and that our country should be just digging up and grabbing and forget about renewables because they'll never work. Just use what you can and run. And so when we started dealing with them, we thought, well, we'll be smart. We'll make a contract. And so here's our little backyard, and we're going, okay, no refueling on our property, no bathrooms on our property. You know, I mean, we got the whole list. You know, we've got dogs. We've got to let us know 24 hours before they work on our property. And I was out of town, and Bob was home dog sitting, and walked out of the shower stark naked and saw people with pith helmets all over our backyard. And they had cut the fences.
Wow.
And we have one dog who is fearful. I mean, she would have been in the next county or the county after that if he had let her out then. And so Bob, still trusting, called the little number of the Enbridge guy, and he came over and said, "Oh my gosh, this must be a mistake, Mr. Dooman. We got here, you know, we're supposed to let you know when we're on the property." And Bob missed a half a day of work over that. And our neighbor came to let the dogs out in the afternoon, and they were back. Okay, and that's just in the story of everything. I mean, we have our yard rigged with game cameras, and we've got pictures of them refilling right out our back door. You know, they were supposed to have work hours. That meant nothing at all. We had this road through our backyard made out of big timbers for the better part of a year. And it's been like being occupied by a hostile foreign army. And guess what they are? A hostile foreign army. And they care nothing about this. They care nothing. They care about what money they can get right now. And take it and get rich and leave waste. You know, we now have an abandoned pipeline in our backyard, too. Just sits there forever. You know. And so now, last month they've been playing Kiss Up Good Boy, and we think they're going to put us on their annual calendar because they planted a prairie, where I used to have a prairie, and they put a watering system in. And when they didn't have enough pressure to run the watering system, they replumbed our house. But I know. So we figure we're going to be on Enbridge's poster child. I'll be Happy Dooman sitting there. And the caption, I hope, underneath said, "And we lied." You know, because who knows? We did the right thing. We went to all our civic officials, we went to our state officials, we went to our national figures, and we got nothing. We got no help. You know, but you figure they're going to the local car dealer buying 40, 50 trucks. They're staying at the Baymont Motel and the jacuzzi suites and giving lots of work to the neighborhood. And we actually found 2 people from Michigan on the pipeline crew. And they were the people spreading straw bales. They were not any of the technical people. They were the straw bale spreaders. Oh, did you find that third one?
Well, one guy carried a sledgehammer.
Oh, that's right, the sledgehammer man. I forgot about him. That was the third person.
He never did anything with it. I watched him the whole day. Carried a sledgehammer.
Wow.
He was from Michigan. And another relatively obese black woman was picking up sticks and putting them in the back of the truck. Just garbage along the way.
That was the tokenism there.
2 people.
This poor woman had arthritis. She was in our backyard trying to reach the sticks, and she was afraid of dogs. But you know, it sounds like a comedy, but it's not a comedy because there's no truth in the company, and there's no truth in the industry. You know, and 40 years ago, I remember. And that's a long time ago, maybe 50 years ago, saying somebody, if they ever mine that tar sands area in Canada, we're all doomed. That was known a long time ago in environmental circles. And who gives a rip now? You know, grab and go. That's what it's all about. So that's my wisdom for lack thereof. I just got back from a week at dog camp, and I'm going to be leaving soon because I'm working 20-hour days being a counselor to 40 people and 78 dogs. So I'm...
This is awesome.
Thank you. So we're going to go home and... Yeah, you got it. I'm going to sleep on a real mattress.
Before you go,
yeah. But you know what's so exciting? I mean, we're getting up there, you know. We're the senior citizens, and to see the vitality here, this is amazing. I mean, we were you 45 years ago, okay? And Bob and I are both biologists, you know, and we were working on pollution projects, and I've worked on wolf recovery here in Michigan for 40 years. We're going to hunt them now, of course. But we've been doing wolf education in Michigan since 1972, so long time. So with that, we're going to, I would love to stay here. Yes.
Do you have time to take maybe like 2 or 3 questions for Beth?
Oh, okay.
Or?
Okay. You know what the answer is going to be to every single one.
The pipeline though that's abandoned, what pipeline is that?
Oh, that's the 6B.
It is.
A pipeline, and we have the old pipeline.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool the way you can walk away from things, but of course they're going to fill it with nitrogen, and it's going to sit there forever, filled with nitrogen, forever, fossilized, until their company changes its name, and they walk away.
So,
Yeah.
You said you spoke to some of the officials representing the state.
Oh, yeah.
And could you maybe go into a little more detail about what they've done for you?
Nothing. I mean, it's like, I spent hours on the phone, hours and hours and hours, and you know, I talked to Debbie Stabenow, who's always been stood up for us, but it's like nobody wants to muck with money. You know, money rules, and everybody sees this as quick money, and who cares if the kids all die, you know, it's quick money. Who cares if the planet can no longer support itself the way that we're used to.
Any other questions? For
Yes.
Beth?
Do you have you tried to get them to read the contract, or what is your legal request that?
Well, we did things a little different from what Carol and Tom. They went into condemnation, and they will have to sign off, or we'll have to sign off eventually with them. There are different ways of trying to deal with the pipeline people, and the route we chose is not the right route or the wrong route. It's just what was best for what we were doing. And there's nothing we can do to take away their rights to be in our backyard at this point. What we can do best is say things like, gee, we used to have grass here. What's this strange stuff, all these invasive plants coming up in our yard now that used to have grass? And we don't use herbicides except for spot killing the poison ivy, which I now have on my hand right this minute. And so, you know, I don't want them walking through my yard and spraying broadleaf killers. Maybe they'll have to send a little crew out and pull out all the pigweed. But we don't have a manicured yard. I mean, I'm a prairie person. I grow a prairie, and so a lot of our yard is not cut. But I don't know when we get to that step. You know, when we go back through, when the cleanup crew came, they were the first people who actually seemed to try to be working with us. And Bob and I have taken a tack that we got to work with these people, but we got to keep them on track. And so, just a simple thing, we had our garden hose running to, we have a big organic garden that's on the other side of the pipeline from our house. And they had asked Bob to unplug the garden hose one day, and I went to Bob and I said, wait a minute, you can't do that. We got it in our contract, you know, we got to have the garden, be able to water the garden. And so the next day, this entourage of pickup trucks, probably 3 or 4 pickup trucks and a bunch of heavy equipment was coming across our backyard. And picture right between, you know, you and you, a road this high made out of timbers this big, 2 layers. That was our backyard, a road, like a highway, okay, through our serene backyard. And so, house shaking, every time they go through, like 40, 50 vehicles a day, and so that morning they were starting through, and I just got out and went to the first guy, and I said, you know, it says in our contract we're supposed to be able to have our garden house here. And the guy said, oh. And I said, well, it says that in our contract. And he had a pack of papers about this big, and he started leafing through. And here's this thing with small print because we had a lot of stuff in our contract. And there it is.
Enbridge agrees to allow the landowner to run a pipe to the garden.
And then they go, oh no, what are we going to do? And in the meantime, we've got this traffic jam sitting in our backyard with these big machines. And they stopped everything. And had to move some of their big wood things, run our little garden hose back out to our garden. And, I mean, I hate to say it, but those were a small victory. Those are a small victories. Yeah. And then one day, we were supposed to have, they weren't supposed to use our private road for their vehicles, and one of our neighbors caught them with a gravel hauler on our small road. And this is the most fractious neighbor in the neighborhood. You don't deal with Marty. Did you meet Marty? No, but we told him. They were too fractious, okay. I mean, he's a guy, you just don't mess with him. He's got to burr up his butt sort of permanently, okay? And sociopath, right? And so anyway, I was living at the time at the Baymont Motel with my 5 dogs while they were digging behind my house. I would leave in the morning when the truck showed up and vacate, and then come back in the evening after the rumbling stopped, because the thought of putting up with 5 dogs barking for 12 hours a day was just beyond me. And Enbridge paid $1,600 for me to live in this jacuzzi suite. But anyway, my other neighbor called and she said, Beth, Marty's got this gravel hauler blockaded on the road. And she said, and they're calling the police. I'm afraid they're going to haul him to jail. Stick up for Marty, right? And she said, what could we do? What can we do? And okay. So anyway, I said, well, I've got my laptop here and I've got my little phone book thing. Let me see if I can call a few other neighbors. And I called a few other neighbors, and you know what? 3 other neighbors went down and locked in the gravel hauler with them. And I mean, I didn't ask them specifically to do that, but that's how pissed people were at Enbridge, was to go way out of their comfort level. And so, you know, you guys, you are brave. You're way brave, and that's so exciting to have you being out there being brave. We appreciate it. Yeah. And I was here the day they cut down Carol's woods. Carol's mom was dying, and they wouldn't stop for one day. And I sat right here, and I'm going to cry telling the story, and you're going to cry listening to it. I watched those trees go down. How many trees were there? Total of 490. I mean, just sitting here, and BOOM! And the ground would shake. And it went on to the whole thing. I mean, I was there for Carol. I'm glad I got to know Carol. And we didn't have news crews come out during the day. But, you know, we've done our work being a pain to Enbridge. But to think that they care so little that they wouldn't even stop for one day. Wow, Carol said goodbye to her mom. I mean, it's just, I'm sorry. But I was honored to be able to do this. Any other things before we go away and Bob gives me a foot rub when we get home? I've been hiking about 5 miles a day in the heat. So be brave. Yeah. And you're the brave man, huh? The white man.
You said that they're fixing up some of the stuff on your yard.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, the prairie they put in. I was gonna plant. I have a big prairie in my front yard, and we had sort of a wimpy prairie that they destroyed. But they took out this wonderful clump of fragrant sumac and winged sumac. Any of you are plant people. I mean, I love every plant in my yard. And so I had bought a bunch of pseudo-native plants at Lowe's at the end of the year and figured, hey, I don't care if they're the right cultivar, they're going to go out there once the pipeline goes through. And then I'll plant my own prairie seeds for my own prairie. And then, you know, spring came and we still didn't have a backyard. We still couldn't plant anything. So now it's summer. And the people that they're sending to clean up are local contractors. who are actually very decent people. I mean, it's literally one of our neighbors. And he said, well, what can we do to make this right? And I said, well, I don't know what to do, because I got supposed to be planting this prairie, and I was going to plant it months ago, and I couldn't, and now it's too late to plant it. And he said, well, what if we got plants? And so I gave him my catalog to Prairie Nursery, and he said, well, do you know anybody local? Well, there's a local wild-type nursery. That afternoon, the local contractor went out to the nursery, talked to them about planting the prairie, came back with a list, and I said, no, but my front prairie has 41 species, and you're only giving me 10 different kinds of plants. So we went back on the drawing board, and I think there are about 20 kinds of plants out there now. And so Bob, I was out of town at a different week at Dog Scout Camp, and Bob watched the reconstruction of the prairie, but they planted, they've plugs out there, pretty decent plugs, but then it's hot and dry. Well, and the deer ate it. Yeah, and the deer ate it. So then they put it in a watering system. Now, I mean, rich people have watering systems. We live in this funny little tiny house on the end of a road. We got this sprinkler system in our yard. So then there wasn't enough water pressure to run it. So then the contractor got the plumber down in the basement, changing our plumbing to run this thing. But of course, you know, it looks a lot like a weed patch now because the prairie plants won't be there for a long time. So I took the local contractor for a walk in my prairie in the front yard, and he's going, oh, how long did it take to get like this? And I said, well, 25 years. It's like, oh, you know, you don't get big clumps of big blue stem overnight. It takes a long time. So, but the local contractor, I would say, is the one who's trying hard right now. And Bob, we can tell him, you talked to him yesterday, he's getting burnt out.
Oh yeah, he's been working in our neighborhood for about a month and a half now. And apparently his company has a contract for about a mile of pipeline right of way. And they're working one property to the next. They started with us, so they were fresh when they hit us. So I talked to him yesterday, and he was very despondent. 3 of his workers had quit in the heat. They just said, we're not doing this anymore. He's having trouble dealing with Enbridge. He's getting flack from the landowners.
Don't think it was lied to, do you?
Getting flack from the landowners. So he's very much trapped in the middle, but he really has put himself a long way out to do a good job of putting our property back. That is to say, as much as they can, we still have an abandoned pipeline and 36 inch.
No, the new one's 24.
Oil line.
Oh, the oil line's 36, yeah.
Yeah.
And we have to ban the pipeline.
Yeah.
You know, and you all know that the ruse that's gone on is here everybody's fighting Excel, and they're doubling the capacity of their pipeline by putting a few extra little pump stations in and making it a little tiny bit thicker. And so they've gotten away with doubling capacity on a tar sands pipeline right to my backyard. Our backyard, and there's the Excel right there. And, you know, trying to get that publicized. And we've been in the press a lot. We've been on NPR a lot. We've been out there. I did have an experience, a life or death experience. I got a call one day from a lawyer from a person another 10 miles to the east of us, and he said they're cutting down our trees today, and they're getting the court order to hold them off. I don't know what to do. And I said, well, how far away is it? He gave me the address. And so she's sitting on one of the end of the property, and I'm sitting on the other in a lawn chair, and we are literally doing the Tenement Square kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I had this experience of having this very large piece of equipment coming toward me, wondering if they were going to turn me into an ink blot or not. And then, well, they're going to have a lot of explaining to do if they do. And they stopped about 20 feet short of me. But, you know, the way I look, I mean, this is the way I look at life, is if it's not worth dying for, it's not worth doing, guys. You know? And I just figured, well, whatever. If they want to make me an inch block, it's their problem, not mine. But they you know, but it's so sad. It's so sad. So, thanks for all you're doing.
Thank you. Thanks so much for coming out.
Yeah. Thank you.